Welcome to Golden Chat, where we provide straight talk. Each week, we deliver great insights on assisted living facility and on senior living in general.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let's get into definitions a little bit. So, as we know, independent living is 24-hour services, and some of those services can consist of meals and housekeeping, and you can coordinate for other services as needed in the independent piece. And then, of course, we have the services and support in the assisted living portion of a licensed facility, and that can have activities of daily living to include the housekeeping, medication assist with showers, dressing, shoes, and any other needs that an individual may have. So let's begin the show.
Let's begin. We were talking lately, and with everything that's happening with the coronavirus, and
Mhm.
people having to self quarantine, people having to self isolate because you have that kind of social conscience where you want to make sure you're not going to endanger yourself and others.
Of
So
course.
now and with all this social distancing, that has got us thinking about deep thinking about, okay, we don't have our regular activities anymore as we used to. People don't go to their workplace, we have to stay in home. So now what can we do? What is it to do there?
So that brings us to our topic.
Yes, so our topic today is self quarantine, self isolation, social distancing. How can you use your time wisely?
Wow. Well, there's so many things that we can do, but I'll talk a little bit about how we're or how I'm isolating with the family, and of course, it's just getting reconnected with things at home. It's like a social reset almost. Things that
Mhm.
we used to when I was younger that we did. We're actually having opportunities to do again, and I'm ashamed to say certain things, but just as simple as having dinner together at the family table because everyone's schedule allows for that. So there's quite a few activities out there, and I think that we'll run through a few things that we can do today.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's a great time to use technology because sometimes we say technology come in between people connecting, where when you use Facebook and social media in general, when you don't interact with people physically anymore, but that time is a great time to actually use technology, and
Right.
in particular, all those FaceTime or Zoom, all those video online meetings that actually helps you to see people the way we see each other right now and to connect.
Right.
So, all those people that we don't have time to talk to because we're so busy.
This is the time.
Um, this
This
is
is
the
the time.
time.
This is the
This
time.
is the time.
I'm seeing a lot on social media how facilities the staff are using their smartphones to make, using technology, of course, to FaceTime, the loved ones so that they're able to have those conversations. Typically, this would be a time for school and grandparents are able to talk to their
Mm-hmm,
children.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
that's not just a social interaction, but it's also an activity for the grandchild to talk to their grandparent for a short period of time. And it's just that connection piece. It doesn't really matter how the connection happens. It's just important that it happens. And this is a time that it's occurring. We need to take advantage of that opportunity at time opposed to focusing on the isolation piece, how we can better use our time.
Yeah, and as you're talking about connecting with family, I'm thinking as well that realizing that life is sometimes taking as a given or for
Hmm.
granted.
Correct.
It
Correct.
could be a good time as well to actually maybe talk to people you haven't talked in a long time, not because you don't have time, but because you may have underlying issues with them. So
That's
it
right.
may be a great time to put those, you know, emotions on the
To the
side
side. To
and
the side. Bury the hatchet, as they like to say. Bury the hatchet. Right.
yes, and realize that it may be a great time to connect because life is short,
It is.
whether it is.
My hopes are, after this podcast today, that individuals will take an opportunity and maybe make a checklist of
Yeah.
things that they may want to do. You may have been putting off certain things. It's time to, it's spring emotional and physical spring cleaning, as we say, right? So, make the checklist, the things that you've been putting off. Whether it's, getting your home in order, whether it's spending more quality time with your significant other, your partner, your children, catching up on a good book, spring cleaning at home, the lawn. I mean, there's a variety of things.
And even just food, like about health. When you think about your health, sometimes we're so
Right.
busy working, so we don't have to focus on what is essential for us. Even like preparing a fresh meal,
A fresh meal.
a
And
fresh
if you don't
meal.
you know how to cook, you can Google it, right? So you don't even have to worry about put that frozen dinner. No more frozen dinners for these next 14 days. Let's just cook fresh.
And that changes our relationship with time as well, because we kind of invest. It's a time to invest in ourselves. It's a time to
Yes,
invest in. And you talk about that checklist.
correct.
Sometimes we don't take the time to exercise. Our body needs to exercise. We are indoors. It doesn't mean that we need to go to the gym. It's a great way to be, to going back to basics. Before we had the gyms, before we had all of that, people were exercising at home.
They were. They were.
Yes, so simple exercise, simple fitness exercise that you can do, and again, use technology. Look at watch short videos and just repeat the movements
Right.
and
So it's
do
not
it
just binge
together with
watching.
family.
It's not just binge watching your favorite shows. There's other quality things that you can do. I will say that
Definitely.
I've also taken the time to actually talk to the family about, end of life
Mm.
situations and aspects of preparing and revisiting the will. Um, there were ironically people on there that aren't here anymore, so you need to update. It needs to be updated, right? So again, this is a time that you can do it. We shouldn't just wait for a tragedy to strike to talk about these things. This should be one of these opportunities we should take to, let's talk about it.
Yeah, because prevention in life in general is something that is great. Sometimes we're delaying those topics because they're painful to talk about. But
Correct.
if we don't prepare them now, as you're talking about the will, then it's even more painful later. So
That's
when
correct.
now is a time to do it where we're just actually doing something to be proactive with the future. It
Yes,
doesn't mean that we're thinking of somebody who's going to die necessarily, because we're still alive. So
that's
it's a
correct.
matter of saying, what can we do? How can we celebrate the life that is still there?
Correct.
And how can we prepare to celebrate the memories when the time will come where, you will have to think about it
That is
differently?
accurate. And another issue is the aspects of hygiene, right? So it's interesting that we have to talk about hygiene and the washing of the hands, because these are things that we will assume that are done naturally. However, it's educational. It's education to it. The consistent washing of hands, the 20 seconds that you must take to do that, and this is a good time to just reinforce that to the children, to everyone. Soap and water, how important it's just soap and water is. It doesn't have to necessarily be sanitizer. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, just basic hygiene thing that we take for granted, and even, and that's thing that got me to think as well, got me thinking, is that we think for ourselves, but now we have to think for ourselves and others as well,
That's right.
because it's like social responsibility. It's
That's
thinking
correct.
about, I'm not only doing it for myself, but I'm doing for you because I want you to be there. I want both of us to be here
That's
and
right.
living rightly.
And
And
being
I'm
safe.
thinking, as well, as we're talking about families,
Hmm.
but not everybody has families.
Correct.
Some people are on their own, independent living, or even younger people that are on their own. So it could be a great time for you to connect with new people online, to
That's
connect
correct.
with different kind of groups and communities, see what kind of interest you have that other people share, and just join communities online. Just make new friends.
That's right. That's right. It's a
It's
great
something good.
time.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, no. So those are some examples of activities, and I'm sure that our listeners have an abundance of opportunities and activities that they're engaging in, and I'm sure they'll call in and they'll share some of those for another future cast.
Yeah, definitely. And just one thing I want to leave us with is thinking that life doesn't stop because of things that can look difficult for us. It's just a time to, as Pedro said at the beginning, to just reset. So thinking as an opportunity to do things differently or think about things differently. So we hope to see you next week in our podcast. And as Pedro said, if you want to contact us or send us your questions, call us at 407-794-727. Email us at hello@easierlivingforyou.com. And again, you can find all our previous podcasts on www.easierlivingforyou.com. We'll be happy to see you next week, same time, 12:45 p.m.
Take care. Have a great week.
Have a great week.